Here we go. We are on this eclipse journey. This is part 3 of our video series for the eclipses of 2024. These videos are designed to give you a heads up of what's to come, because for some of you, if you have something at the matching degrees, and that includes within the orbs that I'll give, especially for this particular eclipse, you want to find out in your chart, right? Even if you don't have your chart, you can comment below to me and we'll work together. I will do what I can for you. I can draw up your chart. That's not such a big deal. And then I can quickly see if you have anything there. And many times people don't. Sometimes they do. And it explains the events that they're going through currently. Because if you have something matching, you can feel the effects of the eclipse up to 6 to sometimes 12 months in advance. Even if the 12 months part is more of a subtle knowing, right? As opposed to, holy shit, look at these major changes. But once you get down to that 6 months part, things start moving and changing. Decisions are made. Like you start seeing things happening in your world, either to yourself or to people you know, whether it's family, home, physical body, the actions of my body, the freedoms of my body, my head, my appearance, the color of my skin, even my right to exist, my very existence. And it's like this eclipse it kind of tackles that long-standing existential theme of survival. And am I living in a reactionary survival mode thing where I'm just here to eat, to gather food and to eat and kill or be killed type of thing? Or we go to the other end of it, which is I might be very, I might have lived a little bit more on the privileged side, or maybe privilege is the wrong word. Maybe I don't know what the right word is, but maybe we are not feeling the chains or the bondages. Maybe we don't feel like we're restricted in any way. And so we might feel as though our reality, whatever that is, because I don't feel like I'm chained, but I certainly don't live to the degree where those who have massive wealth, so they have, I think certain opportunities that are absolutely afforded to them. And so many times, even that lifestyle can bring its own set of chains, right? And so some of those chains might be obvious, some of the expectations and whatnot. And then the emptiness of you've accumulated all this shit, and what is it for anyway? Like, what's it all about? What's my purpose? What am I really doing here anyhow, right? So that can feel heavy and feel like a chain. But what about if you're really enjoying your life and your freedoms and your liberties as they are? You're like, everything's wonderful. I love it the way that it is. And I don't want the way it currently is to change. Right. So there's a whole lot of different perspectives. So this video will can kind of address that for you no matter what walk of life you're from. All right. So we're going to kind of dip into that because this is an eclipse and it happens in the sign of Aries. And Aries is all about my body, the freedoms of my body, the action of my body, who I am, my very existence, how I exist, and my right to live as I see myself living, like the right to just to be in whatever way that is. Everybody, no matter who you are, can feel in some way, shape, or form that there is something changing about your very existence. And so this video can kind of tap onto that, can kind of unpack and unfold all of that. And well, let's just stop babbling and talk about Aries energy. Right off the top, we see that this eclipse happens in April. So I know I kind of got deep because suddenly it's getting really deep. As I'm sitting here talking about this, I've got a flood of information just kind of inundating me. And I'm like, okay, what do you want me to talk about? This is a lot all of a sudden. So here we are. April 8th is the day. and that's pixelated. We'll go back a notch. So April 8th, 2024. This is the second eclipse. This is part of the eclipse series that began in March, and that was in Libra. And this one is in Aries, and this is a solar eclipse. So when you see solar, think sun, right? If you're following along and learning, when you see solar, you think sun. When you hear me say lunar, you think moon. So because it's a solar eclipse, that means the sun is prevalent. It's the sun and the moon together. And when the sun and the moon together, that's what makes a new moon. So another way of saying this is we're having a new moon solar eclipse. So many times you might see that on certain video titles. We're having a new moon solar eclipse. This is a solar eclipse, and a solar eclipse is every solar eclipse is a new moon, just so we're clear on that. And I'll show you how to identify that, how to actually see it in the chart. But the time is important because new moons are a time of setting intentions, the manifestation time. It's a time of saying, here's the power, here's the window, here's the cycle, here's the pattern. Here is the manifesting power pattern. And here it is, 1:20, we'll say 1:21 p.m. Central Daylight Time, because that's the time zone I live in, adjust for where you live. And there is considered like an hour of power time to set your intentions. So whether you call it, I know a lot of people will splice hairs and say setting intentions and wishes and prayers are all each in their own right separate things. So to try to keep things simplistic, I'm just going to say, you got a prayer, use it on this day. You got a wish, write it down or make a wish upon a star on this day. You've got a list of things that you're keeping track of. You're lighting a candle, whatever, meditation, whatever you want to do. The time to focus on something that you wish to bring forward into your life on this day at this time. Now, the 8 hours prior to this time is considered the most potent time, not after, which is why the time is important, because the time is actually your deadline. When it comes to a new moon, when it comes to this, the time is your deadline. And that's just that's just how it works. That's just how it works. Okay? So, I didn't write the rules for the new moon eclipses and for the new moons in general. All that credit goes to, holy crap. Tell me I can remember her name. It seems like forever since I've said her name. But for whatever reason, it's not coming to mind right now. So I know there's a lot of you out there who've been following me and who know her name. Jan Spiller, I heard it. Jan Spiller. I think it might have even been her herself that said it. Jan Spiller, you crazy lady. Say my name. Say my name. I'm hearing Jan Spiller. So Jan Spiller gets the credit and I give her the credit. It is hers. And I started following her, I don't know, some years back. A friend of mine introduced me to her and said, take a look at this book. What do you think? And so I read it through and I thought, I have no idea. I have to test it. And that's what I did. I tested it, which is what Jan Spiller says in her book. Just test it, see. And then you combine the astrology with it. And you're like, whoa, there's something to this. Speaking of something to this, where is the new moon happening exactly? I said in Aries, and there it is. 19 degrees and 24 minutes. This is the new moon. I did not draw this chart up by hand myself like I normally do. I'm only mentioning that because you will notice that the moon itself is here at 19 degrees and 23 minutes. I just let the software do it for me this time because I was doing I call it stacking videos. I was doing as many videos as I could within a certain amount of time, just because I kind of have to record that way most days. And so 19 degrees and 23, 19 degrees and 24 minutes is actually it. It's 1924 because you wait to find out where the moon lines up on top of the sun because the moon is faster than the sun. That's just a minute that we're disputing, not a big deal. But that's not all, right? Like that's just part of this. This is a new moon. So manifestation, what do you want to come forward in your life? And it has to do with Aries energy. Aries energy. Aries, my body and my appearance of my body, the freedom of my body, the actions that I take with my body. Aries energy. So literally the freedoms. I can think of a few different things off the top of my brain where at least especially, and I'm sure all over the world, I don't want to discount anybody else and what they're going through, but I can only follow along with the United States' stuff to kind of stay in sync with what's going on and what's relevant. And so within the US, there's a lot of liberties of our body, the actions of our body that are being challenged, that are matter of fact, a lot of things have been overturned and taken away and changed recently within the United States. And so we think of those sorts of things and how is it that we had certain liberties and now they're gone? How is that possible? In this day and age, how is that possible? That's like one step forward, three steps backwards. Wait a minute. How did we get here? What the hell's going on, right? So Aries loves freedom. It loves independence. It will fight for its independence. And that takes us to the ruler of this new moon, Mars. Mars rules Aries energy. So it rules this new moon. And in ruling this new moon, we think body autonomy, we think weapons, because Mars is a soldier born for war. Mars is, Mars has a short temper, so it's very quick. It may have a thought, but then instead of slowing down and thinking first and talking it through with somebody else, it's all about being first. It's in a rush. So it just kind of like just flies off the handle at times or just takes action and just shoots. You see that? I went all the way to Scorpio energy just like that. Like it just went fast. And that's what Mars energy does when it's not being cautious, when it's not taking its time, which Mars does not know the meaning of the word caution and time. It's sporadic bursts of energy. So we also match Mars energy up with the military, specifically the Marines, the first ones that we send in, supposedly. I don't know because I'm not a military person, but that's just what I've heard, right? So we think Marines and we think racers, NASCAR drivers, somebody, you're in a race of some sort. But this is somebody who's racing, but they have weapons because that's what they were trained to do. And they are young, they're strong, they're seemingly fearless. Seemingly fearless. They don't look before leaping. They don't think before speaking, right? So sometimes they don't think before acting. And you may see them do things they can be comical, but you can see things happen that are harmful and quite sad because of the lack of thinking that occurred. I should say the lack of thought, right? They didn't do any thinking. And so the lack of thinking and just rushing forward and being very spontaneous and so easy to fire up. You think of the rocket boosters, that's Mars energy. It's that fire, that flame, that extra burst to get that rocket for liftoff, right? And then once it's in orbit, they can drop, or once not even it's before orbit, even I believe they drop the lifters, right? They're there for a very short amount of time that they're used for, and that's Mars energy. It is not marathon energy. It is not meant for a marathon. So that's super important to remember that even though you may get out of the gate strong, and first, as you leave the gate, Mars is not the marathoner. It's the sprinter. Okay. So if there's a short battle, if there's a short burst, if there's a quick start to something, that's Mars. That's Aries energy, a quick start. Not so good at finishing. Not so good at finishing. So keep all these things in mind when we're discussing this eclipse and the fact that it is a new moon eclipse, which means if you start something, whatever this new moon wish or intention or prayer is of yours, that has to do with the freedoms of your body, the rights of your actions, your liberties, right? Your body autonomy. You want to have some follow through. You want it to last. You don't want it to be a short, sporadic thing that you enjoyed, just for this little bit of time. Because Mars has that tendency to just be all fired up. It loves new, it loves adventure. But it loses the thrill after a while because it's not new anymore. It's not shiny. Once it starts to get dull and looks a little old, it just chucks it. It's gone. It's like, I'm out of here. I can't, I'm not, this is not what I signed up for, right? It just says, I'm out. And so that's the caution with whatever it is that you're wishing for. Okay. If you need something that needs a fire lit under it to spark something, this is great energy. It's great initiating energy. Great initiating energy. Okay. Mars can be very combative and can be aggressive. All right. So we kind of, just remember these things and remember the fight, right? And the sense of I need my freedom. And what am I willing to do for it? Am I willing to fight for my freedom? And what does that fight look like exactly? I would imagine all of us have a different idea of how we would. Some use a pen for their battle. Some just use their voice for the battle. Some create videos. Some create music. Some make movies. Some literally stand up, get weapons, and go to battle. Some just, go toe to toe, right? So everybody's idea of how they're going to fight and how they're going to actually show up and engage in it is very different. There's a wound here. It's not just about my body, but it's existential. It's about my very existence. And if we are living and feeling as though we don't have our freedoms, then our very existence feels threatened, right? And that makes sense. Imagine all of a sudden you have zero internet. I know that's insane because it's got nothing to do with the actions of your body, but it seems like in today's world, the way we all function on a regular, typically I'll say, is that we spend so much time relating with those devices. Not to say that people don't get out and have a good time with their body. And look, Taffy showed up. But a lot of that time is spent being on the internet, communicating with whoever we want, whenever we want, however we want. And many times our freedom, the freedom to speak, especially online. Oh my God, people are so brave online. I call it, I call the social platforms, it's the playground. It's the digital playground. And so people are real brave there because they're not face to face, right? But Aries energy, it is really more about being with my body, in my body, understanding my body, feeling my body, loving my body, self care, self love, embracing who I am, embracing my appearance, my identity, everything about me, and including the wounds of my body. So, some things about my body that I'm not real thrilled with, right? I can't do any of the things that I used to do before. Matter of fact, everything I'm doing now is nothing like I used to live. Nothing at all. I'm not living alone anymore. I used to live alone. That was one of the greatest joys of my life, right? Um, there's a lot of things. I used to be able to go and volunteer for kitty cats at the cat habitat. I can't do that any longer. I used to go for 2, 3, 4 hour hikes every single day if I could. Obviously, work and school got in the way sometimes, but then those were days when I only did a 2 hour hike, right? But I can't do that anymore. So my life is very, very different, right? But I have to learn to live within some of these things now where I do kind of consider them a chain. But I have to find what sort of freedoms I have within this new body because it is a different body. My body is not the same body. It's very different for me. It doesn't function the same. So I feel as though I've lost some of my freedoms with that. And I have to make peace with it somehow. I have to find what is my identity now within this body. So there could be some leftover wounds. Maybe it has nothing to do with the physical action of your body and the functioning of it, but what if it's simply your appearance? What if you're a little bit larger than you ought to be? What if you see that in your world, someone of a different gender has life it seems like it's a little bit easier, or it seems like you're taken advantage of because you appear to be, a little bit, I don't know, less dominant, right? You're not one of those intimidating forces of nature that walks into a room. And so you feel like maybe you see how other people, opportunities and doors open for them, right? So those people, they have their own set of chains, like I was trying to say in the beginning. And so they may have some things and some wounds, some things that they're letting go that I can't even perceive, right? But what about the wounds of the past, hurts from the past? And this could be soul energy type of hurts, like either things when we were a child or even like our soul memory, because Chiron is part of this eclipse as well. And here's the crazy thing. Do you see the Chiron's degree? 19 degrees, look at a minute, and 24 minutes. You see that? The moon is 1923. I'm using my left hand, I apologize. The sun is 1924. Chiron is 1924. Can you believe that shit? Chiron and the sun are exact. So there's something about the wounds. And I will stress here that this is the new moon. This is a new beginning about the wounds of the body. Remember, it can be the military, people that carry weapons, possibly people who've inflicted wounds upon other people with those weapons, armed forces, but it can be anyone that carries a weapon. Knives are included, especially in this. We think of things that aren't so extreme when we talk about weapons, but it can be our identity, literally, how we look. Maybe I'm much larger than I used to be. And I'm like, "Oh my God, like, what the hell? I just don't function real well in a bigger body." Some people are comfortable like that. Some people, it really is who they are. Like, they're okay and they're comfortable, but it may not work for other people. And they may feel like, "Oh my God, I feel like I'm living in an alien's body or something. This is not who I am. And I'm literally not comfortable with it." Right. So there could be some wounds about that. But it usually, when we talk about Chiron, it usually feels like an attack on your very existence. When we talk about Chiron in Aries, more specifically. So this can be mental and emotional and physical wounds on your very existence. So this new moon is very loaded. Mars is the ruler of this new moon. So we're going to go take a look to see where Mars is, because that will help us to better understand, because you already heard me babble on about Mars. So we got to go find Mars. I know it's not far. We saw it earlier. I kind of crossed over it. I marked it off. There's Mars right there. Not bad for left-handed. Look at Taffy, you're teaching me. I can do it. We're going to go blue. Black looks so, I don't know, just too dark. So, sorry, my hair keeps getting in my eyes. It's driving me nuts. So here we have Mars at 13 degrees. You see that? Mars at 13 degrees and 3 minutes. You're right. It's conjunct Saturn. Saturn is at 14 degrees and 27 minutes. Saturn does represent a restriction of some sort. A restriction. Saturn usually is a slowdown. So if there are wars going on still at this time, or whatever you want to call them, people fighting with weapons that are organized, that are backed by either extreme groups or governments or both, right? Saturn can step in, and Mars gets a new set of orders, because Saturn is the commander of Mars. Saturn and Mars, when they talk, Mars is just the soldier, and Saturn may put a pause to the fighting, may slow down Mars's ability to be very, it dials the Martian energy down a whole notch. And this would have already been the case because Mars is in Pisces, and Pisces likes to sleep. And so Mars in Pisces, Mars is a little bit more laid back, mellow. The actions become, oh, I don't know, spiritual actions. Start weaving in some of those Pisces words. I like to daydream. Or maybe your activities become more artistic, or more about music, putting on a performance of some sort, Hollywood, acting. You follow? Because that's all the Pisces keywords. For some folks, it can be hospitals, because that's Pisces as well. Going to the doctor and hospitals, Pisces and Mars. Mars, I'm sorry, in Pisces. And then being conjunct. So this is on this day. Remember, Saturn can require the steps that have to be taken. So it's like, these are the rules. These are the steps. This is what you have to do next. And Saturn can slow things down. So Mars is getting a double whammy of going slow here. Saturn rules time, and the kind of time isn't speedy. It's slow. It's the snail. Mars is known to be the rabbit, the hare, going super fast, but yeah, the one that's boxing, right? So the one who's going to be the fighter. But Saturn can even put a stop to things at times, because we get stop signs. We get, we're told to go back to the end of the line type of thing, because remember, Simon Says it's Saturn. You have to follow the rules when you're talking with Saturn energy. And if you don't follow the rules, well, there will be consequences, because that's the way life works. That's why we're all involved within societies. That's what makes us a society, is we decide upon certain parameters, certain rules that we are governed by, and we are all supposed to follow them, because that's what we agreed on. Interesting. So this time with this eclipse, and seeing where Mars is in Pisces and already being slowed down and sleepy and dreamy in Pisces, and so I'm not about fighting, there could be a pause. And this would have already occurred, because Mars is already at 13 here. And remember, this is the beginning of April, okay? And then you see Saturn right next to it. So it's already feeling its effects. So what that tells me is Mars's ability to be all about fiery and full of fight, it's actually rethinking fighting here. It's saying, it's really looking hard at, what am I fighting for, and is it worth it? And am I going through greater sacrifices than I agreed upon? Because let's not forget, Pisces is sacrifice. It is sacrifice. And here's Mars sacrificing. Remember, body's in the hospital. Mars and Pisces. So even if it's not a pause, maybe there's, oh my gosh, all of a sudden there's an increase of, I don't want to say deaths, but possibly. So Mars is a little bit slowed down here, and not as strong as it would like to be. It's not as fiery. It's in water. Remember, Mars is a fire sign. It does really good on the land. So it's not real strong with this eclipse. So there's something about that I love, because this eclipse is a North Node eclipse. And the North Node piece, let me kind of get you a different color here. The North Node piece, North Node is right there. And that's about the future. It's where you are headed with your body. And all the Aries keywords, the freedoms of your body, the appearance of your body, your head, literally, mental, physical, emotional wounds to your body, because this eclipse includes Chiron. And this is a North Node. And normally, whenever you have an eclipse that is a solar eclipse, which this is, normally it is about something tangible and material in your life. Something changes. So you can usually recognize it a little bit more. It's not so emotional, because that would be the lunar eclipse, all about the moon and the emotions, right? We're not really in our emotions here, because it's a solar eclipse. It's more about taking action. But remember the teaching with Mars energy, think first. Maybe talk to someone about it first. Maybe just put some time in there so that you're forced to slow down, although this Mars is already being slowed down. So that means you might have already had time to think. Okay. So then we have to look at the Mercury in general, because that's our thinking. Because whatever we do at this time, it has a lot to do with our future. because that's the North Node, the future of our body, the freedom of our body, our right to exist, our body autonomy. My body, my rights. You follow? Mercury is in Aries. And you're right, it's in a retrograde. So this makes this eclipse tricky because it's an eclipse where we're setting our intentions, but our mind is moving really fast and it's going to likely change its mind. This means it is still gathering information. It has to go back to almost 22 degrees, conjunct the eclipse, right? I think it goes back to like 21 because I have a Mercury retrograde video for this Mercury retrograding through Aries. So that will give you the more details on it. But so it's fire, it's our actions, it's very fast, it can be spontaneous, and it's our mind that we're talking about. But because it's in red, it still has quite a bit of ways to go. This eclipse point, if I didn't mention it yet, this 19 degrees and 24 minutes for this eclipse. There's another layer of information here. And this is the United States, the 20 degrees where the Mercury has to go back to for her retrograde. The 20 degrees, Aries. This is on the United States, their natal Chiron. Their natal Chiron. Yes, you heard me say it. So the United States is having its Chiron return. Can this stuff get any bigger? Like, I feel like I'm making this up because it's so freaking loaded. Just when you think that's all, it's like, but wait, there's more. This eclipse is happening on the United States Chiron, which is at 20 degrees in Aries, in their fourth house. Fourth house, strong feminine energy. So we think females, we think homes, literally physical homes. We all know that there's an issue with housing, people not being able to afford it. There's a lack of housing, right? But also bodies, physical bodies, and women, my rights to my body, what I do with my body, it's my choice, right? So we know with this Mercury retrograding back to this point, with the United States' natal Chiron at this point, this is where their Chiron sits at 20 degrees. So it's like right there, bam. And the eclipse is right there. This is so loaded. This is so loaded, it's insane. The other thing I want to just add real quick, and then I'm going to end it because we'll do another video when we get closer to this, is Venus. And I wanted to mention Venus because the United States having their Chiron in the fourth house highlights women, highlights feminine energy. And Venus is in Aries. You see this? Venus is sitting here in Aries at 4 degrees and 26 minutes. Right there. Hygeia is right next to her at 3:53. They're together. Hygeia looks like that figure 8 almost. She's right there in black, this figure 8. Yeah, that's Neptune at 28 in Pisces. Hygeia is like a report card. It's a health report card, to be exact. So it has to do with our bodies, and it's conjunct feminine energy. Venus. Venus is values. Venus wants harmony. Venus is feeling feisty because she's in Aries. She's fired up. She's in Aries. She's got the backing of the report card of Hygeia. So something is likely on the stove and brewing and bubbling. There's a crock pot or something. We've got the ingredients in there, and the product isn't out yet because of this Mercury retrograde. But Salacia, right there at 9 degrees, is also feminine energy in Aries. Selassie is very powerful. Selassie she rules the water. So it adds emotions to the fiery Aries energy and the willingness to fight over something. So there's just a lot of strong energy for feminine because Mars's masculine energy is toned down quite a bit because Mars is now in Pisces. So it's taken the edge off of Mars. Remember, Pisces is about surrendering. Pisces is about unity and understanding. It is soft. It's sound. It's music. It's smooth. It's going with the flow. Okay, is this what you wanted to do? Okay, I'll do that. That's Pisces. And Mars is there taking orders from Saturn. Remember, Saturn is what we're building over a long period of time. It wants to be successful at the long-term build, right? And so Mars is taking orders from Saturn. Public figures, Pisces energy, public figures. So this is such a loaded. I mean, I can't remember the last time I looked at an event that was so loaded. Seriously. We look at Mercury, who is down there, going to go backwards. And we ask ourselves, what is Mercury trying to find out? It's going back to talk about the body and the freedoms and the liberties of our body. Because if this person over here has those liberties, then this person should have those liberties, right? And that's what Mercury's going to go back and do. So this North Node solar eclipse is material and tangible. It's about your future. It is about where we are headed. And for the United States, this is unbelievably personal. The body autonomy, the rights to my body, the rights to how I identify, the rights and the freedom and the equality of how I look. All of this is included in this. There's so much wrapped up in this. We will definitely do another video. Check the degrees on your chart. The orb on this one is big. If I forget, the orb on this one is big. The eclipse happens here. Let me do this real quick side by side so you can see this. The eclipse happens here. We're going to say that 19 degrees is here. We'll say right at the beginning of the silver piece is 19 degrees and 24 minutes. Because there are so many planets involved in this. So many. We're going to 6 degrees, 6 degrees forward. So 20, 26 degrees, 25, 26 degrees of Aries. And as far as the other way, the orb isn't going to be as big. I know normally we do equal orbs going forward and backwards, but look how many planets we have. Look how many planets we have between 19 degrees and 24, 25, 26. You see that? The orb is so large. So I have to go 2 degrees beyond Mercury, you see? So we're going to go to 26 degrees this way, but I'm going to give it 4 degrees this way. So that would mean 15 degrees. That would include the North Node. So, oh yeah, maybe we will just go add 2 more degrees. Okay. Yeah, 13 degrees. This is insane. Oh my God. This is so crazy. I've never, ever given an orb this large before. This is crazy. So here's the 19 in your chart. If you're looking at your chart and you got something there. So if you don't have something at 19 in Aries, you're looking to see if you have anything literally between 13 degrees and 27 degrees of Aries. That includes a whole lot of people in this. And it's not just at Aries, because whenever we talk about an eclipse, we're going to look at our Libra energy too, but that's going into a whole lot more details. And this video is long enough already. It's at 40-minute mark, so I'm stopping. This is the part 1. I will maybe, who knows how many we'll do, depends on how many questions we get below. Comment below if you got a question. I will create a video specifically to answer questions, because your question will likely be a question that so many other people have, okay? So don't be afraid. I enjoy the questions, and if they're questions that help us create content that you want to watch, well, I'm all about making it. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So, if you're still here, just know that I always appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.